Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so you sent us some really interesting material this time,
Hmm?
and our goal, like always, is to pull out the main ideas, get you up to speed fast.
Right.
This stuff comes from David DeAngelo's Double Your Dating Sex Secrets. It's from 2001, actually.
Yeah, quite a while back.
Exactly. And we should probably say up front, the topic, sexual dynamics, it's personal, and the text is definitely from a different time.
For sure.
Our aim isn't really to, agree or disagree with it. It's more about understanding the perspective in the text.
Just laying out what it says.
Yeah, because you, our listener, picked this. So clearly there's interest in looking at different ways people think about men and women connecting, intimacy.
Absolutely. And it's always fascinating to look at sources from a specific period,
Yeah.
how they tackled these complex subjects.
So let's dive in.
Okay, well, the thing that kind of jumps out right away
Right?
is D'Angelo's main idea.
Mm-hmm.
He basically says men and women experience things completely differently.
How?
The whole process, perceiving something, thinking about it, deciding, acting, especially when it comes to sex, he sees really distinct gender lines there.
Okay, so let's break that down. How does he describe the initial attraction part for men versus women?
Well, the contrast he paints is pretty stark.
Yeah.
For men, he presents it almost like a switch flips. Sees an attractive woman, feels attraction, wants sex. He says it happens in like 1 to 3 seconds.
Wow, that fast. He gives that example, right? The guy working on his car.
Yeah, exactly. Totally absorbed, then sees someone attractive and bam, instantly thinking about sex.
It sounds very primal the way he describes it.
Okay, so visual trigger, instant response for men in his model.
That's a core part of his argument, yeah. Huge emphasis on the visual for male arousal. But then he draws this really direct contrast with women.
What's the contrast?
According to the text, even if a woman sees a guy she finds attractive, that first hit isn't usually sexual arousal.
Oh, interesting. What is it then? He suggests it's more like curiosity, wanting to know more about him, beyond just how he looks.
Huh. So that initial difference, he argues, kind of sets everything else on a different track.
That's the idea. It leads to potential misinterpretations,
Well,
right?
makes sense. He mentions the smile thing, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. A man smiles. A woman often just sees it as friendly.
Okay.
But if a woman smiles at a man, D'Angelo says the man's much more likely to think, she's interested sexually.
You can totally see how wires could get crossed there, assuming different things from the get-go.
Exactly. And these different starting points, according to the source, really shape how things progress sexually.
So the takeaway is women need more time and different things.
Generally speaking, yes. The text emphasizes women usually take longer to get aroused, and the triggers are often different from that quick visual response he assigns to men.
Which I guess leads into why he talks so much about the other senses.
Precisely. Understanding that difference, he says, shows why senses besides sight are so critical for sparking desire in women.
Right, he lists them out. Voice tone, sensual language, not necessarily sexual. He clarifies touch, smell, taste.
Yeah.
It's interesting how sight gets kind of downplayed for women in his view. Like, you need to look okay, not be off-putting.
Right, avoid unattractiveness.
But it's the other senses that can really do the heavy lifting, even if someone isn't her usual type visually.
And the level of detail he goes into for those senses is pretty remarkable.
Like with voice.
Yeah, it's not just words, it's the tone. Using what he calls sensual language, focusing on feelings, sensations, not just sex acts,
Yeah.
and vivid descriptions.
He mentions women appreciating painful detail. What's that about?
You know, he doesn't really elaborate much on that specific phrase, but the context suggests just very specific, rich description.
Okay. And touch. It's not just any touch, is it?
No, definitely not. He makes a big distinction. Not a quick rub, but like very deliberate, slow fingertip movements.
Hello?
And he suggests starting by not touching the obvious erogenous zones right away
Why is
to build anticipation. It's that slow burn idea again. Let the wanting build up.
Gotcha. A slow burn. That seems like a running theme.
It really is.
Yeah.
Same thing with kissing. He contrasts aggressive kissing with gentler, more hesitant kisses.
Like teasing.
Sorta. Building it slowly, maybe pausing briefly. He thinks that's way more effective for generating that internal fire, as he puts it.
And then there's smell. That part was kind of specific.
Oh, yeah. The 5 to 10 minutes of just smelling her neck and shoulders.
No kissing, no licking.
Nope. Just inhaling her scent. He thinks women find that focused attention really appealing.
It's definitely distinct. And taste. That wasn't just kissing either.
No, he mentions actually feeding her things.
Yeah.
Strawberries, chocolate, classic romantic food.
Champagne, yeah.
And even using flavored massage oils. It's all about hitting those different sensory buttons.
Which brings us to romance. He talks about it, but with a warning, right?
Yeah, specific kind of warning. He sees romance as showing the encounter means something, making it a great experience for her. But he cautions against big romantic gestures, expensive gifts, love letters, that kind of stuff, if you're not actually looking for marriage or serious commitment.
Because it sends the wrong signal.
That's his point. He says focus on sensory romance instead. The touching, smelling, tasting we've been talking about. Keep it about the immediate experience, not grand promises.
Okay, so sensory romance, not necessarily grand romantic gestures. Got it. And then he talks a lot about anticipation.
That seems huge in his framework, building excitement, tension. He suggests women find that really, really arousing, wondering what's next, that pleasurable uncertainty.
How does he suggest building that?
A few specific techniques,
Right.
like saying you have a surprise but making her wait for it, using a blindfold to make other senses more intense,
Right.
and even stopping something pleasurable mid-action.
And stopping, like if she's enjoying it.
Yeah. He admits it might seem counterintuitive, especially maybe from a male perspective. But he argues it cranks up the desire, makes her want it more.
Huh. Okay. Definitely a different strategy. Then he gets super specific about how to use the senses, right?
Oh, yeah. Very detailed. Touch. He goes back to that light, slow fingertip thing across the whole body. But again, maybe avoiding the main zones initially. Let it simmer.
And kissing.
Starts light, almost brushing the lips, then neck, shoulders. Gentle sucking or licking. He uses an ice cream cone analogy, like tasting. Delicate teasing.
Right, tasting, not attacking. The taste section mentions specific oils too, didn't it?
Yeah, the Kama Sutra oil flavored warming kind.
Yeah.
Very direct sensory input there.
And smell again that 5 to 10 minutes, but he also gives a line to say.
Something like, you smell good. Yeah, I'm just going to enjoy your scent for a bit. He really believes in vocalizing that appreciation of her natural smell.
It keeps coming back to that difference in sensory focus he emphasizes between men and women.
Absolutely. It underpins so much of his argument, which then leads into talking sexy.
How does he define that? It's different for men and women too, presumably.
He thinks so. He contrasts what he figures men like, maybe more direct, explicit stuff, with what he thinks works for women.
Which is?
More about detailed descriptions of feelings, sensations, focusing on the subtleties of a touch or a kiss.
He gives an example, doesn't he?
Yeah, like your lips feel so soft and sexy. I love the way your lower lip feels when I kiss it. Very sensory, descriptive.
Okay. And storytelling. Whispering plans.
Exactly. Whispering detailed descriptions of what you plan to do right into her ear. Soft, slow, deep voice. It's about building this mental movie, engaging her imagination and senses together.
It all seems geared towards this gradual buildup before...
Right.
Well, before sex actually happens.
Right, what he calls the transition into sex. What most people just call foreplay, basically.
And his core idea there is kind of provocative.
Yeah, the hungry don't get fed.
Meaning?
Meaning, act like you don't need sex right away.
Yeah.
Adopt this attitude of, like, I'm cool either way. He believes that posture, combined with all the sensory stuff and the anticipation you've built, is what really ignites her desire, not seeming desperate or overly focused on the end goal.
So keep building anticipation, even at this stage.
Yeah, using that start-stop approach with things that feel good. Touch, kissing, but maybe pulling back slightly.
Okay. And how do you know when she is ready, according to him?
He lists some signals to watch for. Subtle things, maybe bigger things, like shifting her body, maybe grinding her hips a bit,
Right.
or her starting to take clothes off, or saying something direct, or even, grabbing your crotch. Pretty clear signal, that one.
Yeah, can't miss that.
His idea is if you do the build-up right, one of these signals will likely appear. And that's the green light to escalate physically.
And he gives a sequence for that escalation?
He does. Quite specific. Start with hands over closed breasts, but then maybe stomach, back, then shirt off, but maybe wait on direct breast contact.
Still delaying a bit.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Then interact with the bra, then pants off, touch around the underwear, and then finally gentle touch between the legs. It's very step-by-step, unhurried.
And crucially, he reminds people to stop if she says stop, right?
Absolutely. He explicitly says, stop pee means stop pee. Yeah. Or if she pushes away, that's non-negotiable. Standard consent, really.
Good. Okay, then he moves into oral sex suggestions.
Right. And again, starts broader. Kissing down the body for stomach, inner thighs, legs, More anticipation building.
Keeps coming back to that.
It does. He also mentions checking for comfort, freshness, suggesting a shower together if she seems hesitant.
Practical advice. And for the act itself?
Start gentle.
Yes.
Kissing, looking, use the tongue on the clitoris, but also fingers inside, introducing fingers slowly, gradually.
Okay.
He talks about trying different techniques with mouth and fingers, but then, and this is interesting, finding what works and sticking with it.
Sticking with it, not varying it.
Yeah, identifying that magic combination of speed and pressure she really responds to, and just repeating that until she orgasms.
That feels different from maybe a common impulse to keep changing things up.
It might be. He also talks about guiding her if she reciprocates, suggesting what feels good to you, but framing it collaboratively.
How so?
Like saying, oh, I really liked it when you did this. Not sounding like you're instructing her, more like sharing your pleasure.
Okay, emphasizes communication.
Yep.
Makes sense. Then intercourse itself.
Right, and the main theme here is pay attention to her reactions.
Because everyone's different.
Exactly. He says, remember what she liked before, what signals she gives, and again, start slow with penetration. Just the tip, pull back. Anticipation again.
He seems very focused on anticipation.
It's central to his whole approach.
Yeah.
He also stresses getting her to orgasm before intercourse.
Why is that? Lubrication?
Primarily, yes. And just overall pleasure and readiness, presumably.
Then he lists ideas for during intercourse.
Yeah, a whole bunch. Varying thrusting fast and shallow, then slow and deep. Making eye contact. Continuing to touch and kiss her whole body. Not just focusing on the mechanics. He even mentions a wild man phase, but only after plenty of buildup.
Wild man phase.
More energetic, I guess.
Yeah.
He encourages trying combinations, kissing while pinching nipples, stuff like that. Being creative.
Okay. And pausing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just pausing if you need to, maybe for control or if anxiety kicks in, but frame it positively. Like, I just want to kiss you for a minute.
Makes sense. He also mentions mental tricks for lasting longer.
Visualization techniques for preventing premature ejaculation.
So the overall vibe is creativity, but mostly just really tuning into her pleasure, her response.
That seems to be the absolute core message for that section. Attentiveness.
And finally, he touches on changing positions, uses doggy style as the example.
Yeah, and he acknowledges that while men might often prefer positions like that, women might feel less connected or intimate during them.
So his solution isn't don't do it, but
focus on the transition. Make it smooth, gradual. He gives this really detailed walkthrough from missionary to doggy style. The key is maintaining physical contact kissing, holding at each little step of the change.
so it doesn't feel abrupt or purely mechanical.
Exactly. Keep that connection going throughout the shift. Be mindful of the whole experience, not just the position itself.
Okay. Wow, that's quite a detailed perspective.
It really is.
So we've definitely dug into the viewpoint from these Sex Secrets excerpts. It's clear he really hammers home this idea of like fundamental differences between men and women's sexual responses.
And that whole strategy built around specific sensory stimulation, building anticipation, a slower pace for women, that's the core.
Yeah, and like we said at the start, it's crucial to remember this is just one perspective from one source from back in 2001.
Absolutely. Understanding different viewpoints, though, can be really informative as you figure out intimacy and connection for yourself.
Right. So the question for you, our listener, after hearing all this, how do these ideas from DeAngelo's material sit with you? Do they resonate at all? Do they clash with how you see intimacy and sexual connection?
Yeah, definitely some food for thought there. Something to mull over and maybe explore more on your own.
For sure. Well, thanks for sending this material our way, and thanks for joining us for this deep dive.